I did a live stream with Ava Monkey on the new Evangelion footage that aired yesterday. You should check out his channel for some top tier Ava content, but I decided to collect my thoughts here. I'm just gonna use stills, given that Carl loves to hand out copyright strikes, but I wanted to throw my 2 cents into the ring. If you'd like to see the actual clip itself, you can quickly search Paris 2019 Evangelion 3.0+1.0 English sub, and I'm sure you'll pull it up in no time. So let's begin with what I thought was good about it. From the videos posted online, the 2D animation quality seems as fluid and beautiful as ever. Anything I could pick apart would be on the artistic merit and not the technical quality. Shots of Mari inside the unit were remarkably smooth, and the character acting, or expressions, are quite well done. I really enjoyed how Mari piloted Unit 8 this time around. It was like she was steering a tow truck or a bus, and it was a creative way to actually show control for piloting. The stakes were slightly clearer than most of the action in 3.0, thanks to brief exposition and saying how they need to restore the Earth right before the battle. They also advertised the event with a time limit that heightened the tension. The continuum of movement, or where your eye was drawn to, was mostly in the center of the frame. Whenever it cut and the focus was somewhere other than the center, it was a little disorienting given the penchant for the camera to swing around during the fight, and we'll talk about that later. Using the Eiffel Tower as a corkscrew to take out the opposition was pretty damn cool, incidentally. While I'm unsure why Paris itself was chosen as a location, I really enjoyed various landmarks that they managed to squeeze in, and the visual flair Paris contributed to an otherwise monotonous red setting. Shiro Sagisu delivered some excellent music as always, expanding on what I've heard from him and his capabilities by incorporating flamenco guitar into the score. There was a lot to like from what we've seen so far, but there was also plenty of things I wasn't too keen on. I really hope the final movie confirms the rebuilds are worthwhile. Spending years on this franchise must be so taxing at this point, and I'd hate for it to all fall on its face. Full disclosure, while I'd never call myself a rebuild fan and outright dislike 2.0, I don't hate 3.0 or the rebuilds as a whole. I thought 3.0 was an interesting, if mean-spirited, attempt to deconstruct the pandering in 2.0 and the nonsense of Shinji's attitude in that film. I wouldn't say 3.0 is a well-executed movie, but it at least was intriguing, and tonally it was on point. Part of how it achieved that was through a very decisive color palette. Reds, blues, purples, white, and black. It often had flat compositions through affinity of hue, and an unusual amount of extremely high camera angles. All of these were intended to flatten the composition as much as possible, leading to an overall desolate atmosphere, like the characters were walking through voids constantly. This is true of the opening set piece as well, with a strong focus on flat compositions, being in space. You're either going to see red from the planet in the background, or purple from the explosions, or just flat white backgrounds and black backgrounds. Keep in mind, just like with this new clip, we had this opening scene as a preview for 3.0 way back when, so a comparison isn't unearned here. I'm illustrating all this for you because I actually like 3.0's opening set piece. I think it succeeds more than any other piece of action throughout the movie, and I think it's way better than this new one for 3.0+1.0. While I praise the centralized compositions in the action, I think the backgrounds constantly whipping about was too disorienting. It took me out of the action. This was a problem I had with Misato's battle in Act 1 of 3.0. Both lacked the compositional simplicity of this opening. Anything that was charging at the camera felt actually thrilling because of the restraint it had to not do anything too over the top. In this new clip, the camera spinning around the characters in three-dimensional space so frequently, it began to lose all sense of importance or thrill. It even made me feel a little nauseous at times. This can all be chalked up to Bruce Bloch's principle of affinity and contrast. The more something is done, the less impactful it is over time. And here in 3.0+1.0, it's just too much, at least for me. Because I don't care about Mari, and much less Willie given their unclear antagonism towards Shinji, I don't really care about the action. Time and time again, great action is character reinforced by spectacle, not the other way around. Asuka's final fight in End of Evangelion was great not because of the jaw-dropping visuals and choreography, but because of how important it was to her. This moment was when she resolved her arc, where she gathered up the strength to win on her own. For the first time in the series, she fought with true confidence in herself instead of a facade of being confident. Contrasting Asuka versus the MP Avas to this opening set piece would be kind of unfair considering how legendary that is, and it's much later on in the film in comparison. But what I'm trying to say is Evangelion has always been about the fights really being about the characters and their growth. That's what made them so effective. Here it's like, okay, nice action, so what? not only is this an issue for this film, it's an issue for 2.0 and 3.0. They're gimmicks for audience engagement, beginning in medias res to establish intrigue and wow through spectacle. What wows me is striking first images that pertain to the overarching theme of the film, not some whatever action I'll forget about a few minutes once the movie actually picks up. For example, if we opened up with the Willy crew huddled in unison working to restore the world as the opening, it might send out a message of teamwork being the core theme of the movie. Not that that isn't a theme across all of Anno's work, but here we got a kaleidoscope-esque image of beneath the Eiffel Tower that may or may not evoke the Door of Guff. Either way, I'm not exactly blown away by the implications of that. End of Evangelion opened up with Shinji standing in isolation beside an angel statue without a head. It's an extreme long shot made even longer by the tilt up. Immediately you know what you're in for and what the character's headspace is. The central theme is loneliness. The film is letting you know that this is what it's going to examine on all fronts. It's remarkably clear and it's with a single image. Anno and crew are no strangers to great filmmaking, but here is not an example. It's disorienting, often chintzy with an array of multicolored plug suits, lack of thematic clarity, and lacking proper character context for true investment. The reason I've gone on and on about this is because I'm worried about 3.0 plus 1.0. Openings to movies are no joke. They really set the tone for everything to come, and you might think I'm overreacting, but I'm not. This is about the skill set demonstrated by the filmmakers. I think this may be the weakest opening of any of the rebuild films, and it is the longest by far. It's concerning to me that this ate away 10 minutes of precious runtime, considering that this is one of the most universal concerns for these films, is a lack of time. And this is the final entry to resolve a load of issues and unresolved threads. Obviously, what'll happen directly after this is picking up where we left off in Shinji's point of view. All the rebuild movies, after wandering off from Shinji's perspective, get right back in his shoes after a little while, and here will be no different. I expect to see Shinji reunite with Willy around the same time he got to Nerve in 3.0, and what I'm hoping this movie will do is resolve the thematic threads established in the previous film, especially regarding Shinji's hero complex. We definitely should not see the world being restored entirely, just rescued as much as it can be. If everyone who's died suddenly comes back to life and all Shinji's done to negatively impact the world is suddenly fixed, that would just be too easy and counter to what 3.0 is building toward. He can't get off the hook like that. Instead, what I hope we'll see is Shinji finally ceasing to pilot Eva once and for all. He should accept that he shouldn't pilot anymore, and his journey should be a humbling one. It should parallel Hideaki Anno's story himself and how he needs to give up Evangelion. Shinji failed to save people, just like Anno, in his perception, failed to help all the otaku with Neon Genesis. Shinji now needs to step back and allow Willy, as a team, to be the hero. But for that to happen, I need to understand Willy. I need to get a clearer picture in respect to what motivates Misato and her lack of communication, as well as all the other crew members. I'd like to see her talk to Shinji. One of the things that End of Eva did really well was stick us in the point of view of the Bridge Bunnies, and that really got us to care about Nerve while they were being killed, and I think Anno can do something similar to that again here with Willy. Whatever 3.0 plus 1.0 is, I hope it doesn't get bogged down in action or waste time focusing on Mari. I don't expect to like the rebuilds more than Neon Genesis, of course not, but I do hope they can bring a fresh perspective on the story and say something meaningful at the end of the day. That was my think piece. Thanks for watching.